Berger's got a new 135 grain, 25 caliber bullet. In this video, we put it through its paces. Gavin Gear here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm back with Travis Fox. Travis, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, Gavin.
Actually, Travis did the heavy lifting for this story, which builds on a couple other stories I've published related to 25 Creedmoor. I built this custom rifle. I worked with the Blackjack 131 grain bullets. This time, we're looking at Berger's new 135 grain bullet.
It was a fun bullet to shoot, brand new from Berger, no data out there on it. So we did a bunch of research, and here's what we came up with.
Let's start with specs. So, let's give a quick rundown on this particular bullet. Obviously, it is a 25 caliber, so it's going to be 257. It's going to fall right between your 6mm and your 6.5, and that really is, it's a great compromise between the two. The weight range of a typical 25 caliber bullet is going to be between 85 grains and 120 grains. This is well above that. We have tested that Blackjack 131. It's pretty similar to that bullet.
Very similar.
Overall. A few more grains of weight. You found that Berger, is it 133 hunting bullet?
133 hunting bullet that Berger's come out with now also. We'll hopefully be doing a follow-up eventually with that.
Yep. So I would call this heaviest in class, and if you know of a 25 caliber bullet in this class that's heavier, drop a comment because we'd love to know about it. We couldn't find one. And in terms of the performance, it's really interesting to look at the BC here. The G1 BC is 0.650. Now I looked at a typical hunting bullet, and it was more in the 0.290 range, which makes sense. A lot of these bullets are going to be like a spire point type design with a flat base, you know, something like this. This is a long, slender, heavy, high BC bullet with a boat tail. Which
does bring up the fact of, you need to look at your barrel twist. Most of these calibers of these 25 cals are 25-06. They're running a 1 in 10 twist rate.
Like Guy Miner's 25-06.
Exactly.
Check out that video. This is a killer hunting caliber. Now this particular bullet gives you a lot more options for long range.
But you do want to run this at it has a recommended 1 in 8 twist rate on that.
And we've got 1 in 7 here. We'll go through the complete rifle details. So we're above that, which means we have a bit of room, which I think is good. The G7 BC 0.334, absolutely excellent. This is a bullet you can push to really, really long ranges. In fact, I would like to do that as a follow-on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that is the high-level specs on the bullet. If you click on that first link in the video description, we'll have all of the specs in the detailed article. Next, let's talk about what this bullet is for.
Who is this for, you ask? It's for your long-range shooting enthusiast. Someone that's going to want to reach out and touch their target. Someone that's going to want to have a caliber that is in between the 6 and the 6.5. It's going to give you a little more recoil than the 6, a little less than the 6.5. But it's still going to reach out there at a distance and get a hold of things.
One of the things that I learned about the 25 Creedmoor, for instance, let's say you're a PRS competitor, that would definitely be who it's for, is yes, you're going to get better higher BC, better wind tolerance, right? Yep. A little bit more recoil, but actually a significantly longer barrel life, which for a PRS competitor is a chief consideration.
Yeah, it's going to help with that. This is another one of those calibers, the 25 Creedmoor, with this bullet in particular, is another one of those calibers that you can go out, shoot it all day long. It's not going to beat you up like some of the heavier calibers, heavier grain bullets. So lots of shooting can be done with this without tiring you out.
This bullet is for someone that wants something very specific. A lot of people can be satisfied with either a 6x47 Lapua or 6.5x47 Lapua. This could be for that person that wants the 25x47 Lapua because competitors are very particular. You kind of have to be as a competitor. So some of the chamberings as of the rundown: 25 Creedmoor, 25x47 Lapua. What about 25 PRC? You were reading up on that a little bit.
I did find couple guys have built 25 PRCs. That looks like a screamer. They're getting some high velocities, and I don't know what their barrel life is going to be on that, but kind of interesting to look at.
Might be interesting to look at what powders you could use, what kind of efficiency you're going to get, and then of course you know you're going to sacrifice some barrel life there. So next we're going to talk about the lab measurements. So this was my first opportunity to kind of like pass the white gloves to Travis. This is where we get really particular about quantifying the consistency of these bullets. So for equipment, we're using micrometers that read into a half of a 10,000th of an inch, and you basically take away that they're going to be accurate to 1/10,000th of an inch. We've got a 0 to 1 that we use for the diameter. We've got a 1 to 2 that we use for the length consistency on the bullet. Then from Cambridge Environmental, we've got the A&D EJ54D2 scale. So for the micrometers, we're using Bluetooth. For the scale, we're using USB. In either case, we can input the data directly into the spreadsheet. And for the weight consistency, we've got the white gloves as if we're using calibration weights and we don't want to transfer fingerprints to alter the results. And what did you think of that experience of just getting in there with the OCD and just getting down and dirty with data?
Well, what I found is dealing with these Berger bullets, they're great. They have very low SD, very low ES all throughout the board, both in diameter, your length data, and the weight data. There's just a lot of consistency there to be found.
And these numbers for the diameter data are exactly what I've seen in multiple other Berger stores. A standard deviation of 1/10,000th of an inch on the diameter, an extreme spread of 3/10,000ths of an inch diameter. So whatever they're doing, it's very consistently consistent.
And they're going to give you consistency in your bullet, which is going to give you consistency as a shooter. Very helpful.
Now we always see a bit more variation on length if we have a hollow point bullet because of how they're formed, right? This is not a polymer tip. It's not a machined aluminum tip. This is a hollow point. And so you can see here we had an SD of 3/1000ths of an inch and an extreme spread of 11.8 thousandths of an inch. That is fairly typical. Now, if it was super high-end bench rest type shooting, we'd use a me-plat trimmer potentially, point the bullets. Totally not necessary for something like a PRS competition, that kind of thing. Yep. And then on the weight data, 135.02 average weight, right on the mark.
Yep.
So what does that mean? There's accuracy and there's precision. That means it's very accurate. It's right on the value we expect. And then we also saw a very consistent result as well with 0.04 grain standard deviation and 0.14 grain extreme spread on weight. Very tight.
Very nice. Thank you, Berger.
This rifle is awesome. This is another one of my custom builds. This is built on a Terminus Zeus Action. We've got a Bartline 5R barrel in 25 cal, 1-7 twist. We finished it at 24 inches. And the Foundation Genesis 2, it's got the ergos.
Yeah.
It's got the look and the feel. It's got the material this micarta material that absorbs recoil in a very unique way.
It's a very interesting stock to shoot. These Foundations, they're very rigid, they're very stiff, but there's this micarta, it has the ability to absorb vibrations, and so the recoil impulse on that rifle is it's so nice. It's hard to describe unless you shoot it.
Yeah, until you pick up the rifle and you handle that Foundation stock. It's got the full-length Arca rail. We've got Hawkins Precision bottom metal and magazines. Really, really top-notch stuff. So this rifle, we've got a lot of different barrels for it too. We've got 6 Creed, we've got 6.5 Creed, 25 Creed. So we've got kind of the full lineup, which is nice. And but the picture shown here shows it with a couple different options.
Yeah, we had taken the Chronos and used it on another build. I pulled the Leupold Mark V off of the 6 Dasher that we have. Oh, that was tough. And put it on the 25 Creed. They're all so fun to shoot, But we put that Leupold on there. It's a great scope, tracks well, very clear optics, very fun to shoot. I did, in this picture, you'll see that we do have a muzzle brake on there. For all the testing that we did do on this, I did shoot a bare muzzle brake.
Gotcha. No brake.
No brake.
Okay.
No brake.
Okay, so next, why don't we talk about where you started in your research in terms of what the load was going to consist of.
Yes. So here are with the Berger, brand new 135 grain hybrid long-range target bullet. There is no data for this bullet. It's a brand new bullet. We get lots of data for the 131 Blackjack bullet, so we have a little bit of a baseline to use. So what did I do? I hit the internet and do a bunch of reading, and I can't really find a whole lot about this. So I do have a tool that I use, Gordon's Reloading Tools. It's an online program that you can register and download for free, and it's very handy. Did a bunch of research on this. took several powders that we had access to and looked at the burn rates. I looked at the case fill capacity and then the burn ratios, and it all models all of the pressure characteristics you're going to get, velocities, potential velocities, what you might end up having. You kind of have to build everything and do a fair bit of reading the fine print on this. And if you look at this screenshot that we have here, there's a lot of data there. And you really have to kind of pick and choose what you're doing and make some pretty safe calculations on what you're going to end up with.
This is typical for like wildcatters, right? When
Yes.
you're developing something custom, different components, a different cartridge that you're working on, you kind of have to look at what are my pressures like? What's my burn efficiency like? And then look at which powders you want to use. And you ended up with 2 powders, right?
Well, I ended up with 2 powders. So on the Creedmoor class, what is the go-to powder?
H4350.
H4350.
Yep.
What's one of the harder powders to find these days?
H4350.
H4350.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get other options for the reloaders out there so that you're not just pigeonholed into one powder. There's other options. Let's see what we can come up with. Well, we have the Vitivatore N555, another brand new powder out there. Plugged it into the software, and it looked like it had some pretty promising results. And I really liked the way it looked with the burn ratio, with the case fill capacity. It was very similar to the H4350. So this is where we started. Let's take a brand new bullet, one brand new powder, one proven powder, and see what we come up with.
So let's talk about the H4350 then.
Of course. H4350, just like everybody knows. Did it work? Of course it worked. Yeah. And it worked very well. Got great velocities, good groupings, no pressure signs. Very happy with it.
2,900 plus feet per second.
Yep.
And we're always looking for what's that magic combination, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to see pressure signs. You want to make sure that you have reasonable velocity consistency, whatever that means for you, depending on how far you're going out. And then, of course, you want to get good group size.
Yeah. Look at velocity. I look at my SD. I look at my group size. Look at my pressure signs. What do we come up with? And we came up with a good load. I was happy with it.
41.5 grains. And again, the disclaimer, always cross-reference this information with multiple OEM sources of load data. And we did get some offline information from Berger. They're working on publishing their load data, so we did have that information later in the story. You started without it, right?
Yep.
But this load here, this 41.5 grain load, 2864.7 average, SD of 6.4, single digit, ding, extreme spread of 11, that's outstanding. The group size, 0.381 inches, which is 0.364 MOA. Shooting at 100 yards. That's where we're doing our testing. That's the ranges that we have.
Yep.
That load, I would say, has excellent potential
Very much
for
so.
that long-range competitor, for that long-range shooter.
This load has potential for one thing. Can you find H4350?
Yeah.
And if you can't,
Then
let's go to the N555.
N555.
And what did we find there? I found very comparable data for the N55. So charge rates were the same.
41.5.
The velocity was 100 feet per second lower, approximately. The SD was great. The ES was great. And look at the group size. I ended up with the same exact group size as the H4050. I found that kind of funny, actually.
And a little bit better. SD was almost half.
Yep.
A little bit more than half, I should say.
So the one thing I did note about the N555 is my SDs across the board were single-digit SDs across the board. So very, very consistent powder in this rifle, in this cartridge. That is a very forgiving powder to me. It gives you a range to work with. I was happy with it. I would shoot this powder absolutely.
And I would say the lower velocity does not bother me at all.
No.
So in my discussion with Brian Litz, his big thing was it used to be that range uncertainty was the big problem to solve before inexpensive laser rangefinders were prevalent, right? Now that range uncertainty isn't an issue, it's more of the consistency, and a lower node on our velocity here means a bit less recoil, a bit less heat, and longer barrel life. So I'll take this load.
Absolutely. That was exactly what I was looking at. The consistency of this powder and this bullet in this cartridge, very, very good. I might say that I might sway a little bit towards the N555 because you could probably find it.
Yep. Great work putting this data together. I'm looking forward to shooting this load myself. Next, let's wrap up kind of with our concluding thoughts.
So what's my conclusion? Well, here's my conclusion. Gavin builds great rifles. Once again, I got another rifle handed to me. That just shoots lights out. And I really appreciate that from Gavin. That makes developing these cartridges very easy. It makes it very fun. I get Berger to hand us new bullets. We get new powders to try. And it all ends up being very successful, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the help from the industry, specifically Gordy Gritters and Foundation, Bartline, etc. Yeah, the folks at Blackjack have reamers for the 25 Creedmoor and for the 25x47. So if you're interested in having a rifle built, they're a great source of information.
Yep.
And their bullets are really great, I would say, kind of complement to what Berger's doing. And Berger obviously sees something compelling here to jump into the game with this 135 grain bullet. I want to follow it up with that 133. Imagine coyotes at 600 yards or 800 yards with that 133. I think that would be pretty killer. And then what about this? What about shooting a PRS match with a 25 Creedmoor?
I would love to do that.
Would you want to look at a 25x47 Lapua for that matter?
Oh, possibly, yeah. I'm pretty hooked on this one right now, but yeah. I do want to mention this is all, the Ellie Wilson dies that we had, the Area 4190 press. These all just
competition primer cedar from Primal Rights.
All these products to put all this together to make this function properly is just really, really on target and just helps us achieve these goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we would also like to know, what do you think about the 25 cal long range bullets, whether it be the Berger or the Blackjack? Are you shooting a PRS match and are you looking at 25 Creedmoor as a kind of trade-off, as that middle ground between 6 Creed and 6.5 Creed? We'd love to hear your feedback as well. Don't forget to click on that first link in the video description for all of the extensive data. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, make your voice heard. If you have something to say, please drop a comment. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the awesome content that is coming up. And finally, flex your reloading pride. You could look great in one of these t-shirts. We've got multiple designs at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'll see you later because I'm off to go shooting.